What's up everyone, this is Soul with another video, and you can see what I have right here. Shadowlands preview, Torghast, Tower of the Damned, the thing that I've been looking forward to most, and I'm sure that many of you might be too, that's why you're kind of here. We're going to take a look at this preview that Blizzard had just put out maybe about an hour or so ago, and then react to some of the changes and some of the clarifications, because ever since I talked about Torghast and the data mine information from just over the weekend, we got some updated info. So let's dive right in, and I'm going to read for a little bit. Please bear with me. At the heart of the mod lies Torghast, Tower of the Damned, a cursed, otherworldly prison where the wickedest souls in the universe are locked away. Highly replayable and inspired by roguelike games, heroes are invited to explore its ever-changing halls and chambers and do battle with minions of the Jailer, Torghast's vile ruler. Those who brave its trials can claim legendary treasures and help free the heroic spirits wrongfully trapped within. Here's a disclaimer though. The Torghast experience is in a true alpha state. It is not yet feature complete, and many design decisions are still being made. Due to our desire to get pointed feedback on class-specific Anima Powers, we are only testing a few classes at a time. When it becomes available to play on the alpha, the following classes will be available for testing: Demon Hunter, Mage, Priest, and Warlock. We'll keep you updated on when other classes are introduced. So later in this video, I'm going to go over at least a couple of the Covenant powers for like the Priest. The Priest is probably going to be the first class that I want to dive into Torghast with, because I want to see how it feels being a healer spec. So I'm going to go in there as a discipline. Torghast is an otherworldly place with an ever-shifting interior. There are many areas to discover, and at this time, players will be able to explore Skoldus Halls and Fractured Chambers. In Skoldus Hall, Warden Skoldus oversees this wing of Torghast. He is a cruel warden who uses rats, dogs, and other beasts to torment his quarry. In Fractured Chambers, prisoners from Maldraxxus are held here, their bones broken over and over again. Fun. With the player's help, they escape their cells and assault their captors. And I imagine that some of them are probably going to assault you because, I'm sure that after a while, after going through that sort of pain for a while, you're probably going to lose your freaking minds. Your mission. With every floor, enemies will become stronger, but you'll also become more powerful by using temporary skills called Anima Powers. Levels will also become more complex with the higher you climb. The first few floors will have a simple layout, but higher up, you'll be dealing with traps, puzzles, and locked doors that will require keys held by ruthless enemies. So there's definitely going to be a sort of a, hey, don't just dash to the end. You are definitely rewarded, or it's going to feel almost required to explore almost every floor in its entirety, so that way you can get like all the cool buffs and power-ups and, of course, the keys that you need to proceed to the next floor. It's always changing. These dynamic wings change their layout each time you step inside, and they can also be influenced by the Jailer's command, changing the types of enemies you encounter and the Anima Powers available for you to choose between. So that the beasts of whatever that thing's called, like that sort of event, that's probably what they mean by always changing. Every time you enter the tower, you will need to explore it. Don't rely on memories of past adventures, lest you get lulled into a trap or ambushed by a horde of enemies. So the kinds of random factors that we can expect to run into, based on some of the stuff that we read over the weekend, are mob packs, mob life, perhaps even the abilities of said mobs, their placement, if there's going to be traps, and then of course there is the overall layout of Torghast itself, the environments. The power of Anima. Anima Powers grant you the incredible strength needed to take on the Jailer's more challenging allies. They will often directly improve one of your Covenant class or signature abilities. Neat. Modifying it with powerful properties for you to wield. Anima Powers can be found hidden in corners, tucked away in phylacteries, or carried on the bodies of the Jailer's servitors. Keep an eye out for powers that interact with one another in interesting ways. So, like I said, definitely rewarding exploration, breaking pots, killing everything that you see in the hopes of maybe getting something that'll help you stay ahead of the game as you go down the road, or as you climb the tower, I should say. Anima Powers can also be found while discovering an area. Be on the lookout for floating anima orbs as you make your way to the next floor. Nice. Alright, so Phantasma and Vendors, something that I was curious about. Sometimes enemies will drop Phantasma. a currency that is unique to Torghast. You may also find Phantasma from Anima Powers or breakable objects. Your Phantasma all your Phantasma disappears as soon as you leave Torghast. Occasionally, you may find a broker, a Phantasma vendor within Torghast, who will allow you to spend your Phantasma to buy Anima Powers, along with other consumables that will aid you on your run. So this is really typical of roguelike types, where you might run into like a floor or a certain section that is considered safe, and then you'll run into a vendor that will let you spend this temporary currency on buffs, consumables, things that'll help you get by. It makes me wonder, like, what kinds of things, are there going to be certain things that are disabled inside Torghast? Like, can we not use potions? Can we not use flasks or food or things like that? That's going to be interesting to see. Or even crazier, like, what if there are item level caps? We're going to have to, wait to find out. Now, here's something that's really critical to the current conversation about Torghast. Deaths and the Terragru. I'm going to call him the Bouncer, all right? Are we cool with that? Let's call him the Bouncer. By and large, your failures in Torghast are measured in deaths, not with a timer. Dying repeatedly alerts the Bouncer, a lumbering, ironclad creature that will appear at the level's entrance and slowly move towards its end. If he sees any heroes, he will chase down and kill them. If he reaches the end of the level or kills all the players in the level, your run ends and you're thrown out of Torghast. The Bouncer cannot be defeated, but there are whispers that it is possible to slow him, if only for a moment. Now, the question that I have about this is, if the Bouncer's coming after your butt, right? He makes it to the end, game over. He kills everyone, game over. You wipe while he's out, presumably game over. So like if you're fighting other mobs and the Bouncer's like way far away, but you die anyway, I presume that you're gonna get kicked out. But what if you make it to the next floor? If you make it to the next floor, is there like, okay, cool, the Bouncer has been alerted, but you make it to the next floor, does that mean the death count, it kind of sort of resets? So like maybe on the next death, then the Bouncer's like, oh, there you are, and then he reappears again right away? Or is it, okay, you made it to the next floor, you have a 1 minute head start, but the Bouncer is coming for your ass, so keep moving. It could be one way or the other. And let me clarify that there was in fact a blue post later that clarifies the vitality stat that I talked about kind of at length over the weekend, that it's not even going to be inside Torghast. It might be related to the Maw or something else, or it just might be a thing that was there and now it's not. So I'm cool with that. I'm totally cool with that. So no timer. Instead, it's just once you die too many times, then it's sudden death. All right? Think of it like that. Yeah, so that sense of urgency is there. It's just not there at all unless you're like dying. So I think I can accept something like that. If I suck, okay, cool. And at the same time, it's not like, hey, I'm going to corpse run my way to the very top of Torghast. I am slightly concerned still over the idea of just waiting and popping cooldowns, waiting and popping cooldowns, waiting and popping cooldowns. I think that's a sort of a negative kind of player behavior that I'm sure that some people will be like, well, this is what I got to do it. Great. So I wonder if Blizzard is going to kind of rein that in somehow, if anything. Anyway, let's move on to legendary rewards. As you climb the tower, you may discover a floor that contains a legendary chest. Ew. Inside, you'll discover reagents to craft legendary items that can be taken to a mysterious rune sage who will help you build legendary items. You are in full control. You can choose which type of equipment you'll make and what powers will go in them to make them truly your own. So I'm going to be... we still don't have like all the information yet. I know that I talked about it a little bit in the professions video that I did just the other day. Although I know that my information, or what I was talking about, it wasn't quite complete at all. So as far as I've seen, Torghast isn't testable right now, even though the wording says that, hey, well, it's testable. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe I'm wrong, and I can jump into this like after we're done recording here. So right now I'm over here at Wowhead sites where they talk about some of these Covenant ability upgrades, which might in fact just be Covenant ability upgrades, although some of these buffs, some of these might have something to do with Torghast, so this might be entirely incorrect, and if it is, then it is. But for now, we're going to take a look at some of the abilities for priests and demon hunters. Actually, I'll take a look at all the ones that are meant to be testable, okay? So starting with the priest, so Boon of the Ascended, I was just messing around with this earlier today, where you get a buff, you cast it, you do some damage to mobs, and every time you complete a cast, which is an instant cast, you get a certain number of stacks, and based on the number of stacks, you explode for damage. So let's take a look at some of these modifiers. Faith Stone, your self-healing from Boon of the Ascended is increased by 100%, so okay for longevity, not so bad. Feathered Fetters, the damage and healing of Boon of the Ascended's effects are increased by 300%, but you cannot move for its duration. I kind of like that one. It makes you very much like a very powerful ground turret of sorts. Although keep in mind that when you have Boon of the Ascendant, you move a lot faster, and you can cast this on the move because it's an instant spell whenever you're trying to damage enemies. So you can kind of, you know, unbuffed, you can kind of kite enemies around, kind of sort of, because you're moving so fast. Here, you're just gonna have to take the damage. All right, for a Glorious Prayer, Boon of the Ascended heals you for 100% of your health. Ascendant Eruption restores 100% of your mana. So kind of like a group thing, sort of. So popping it will just heal you to full, and then when the entire sequence is over, or after 10 seconds, you get 100% of your mana back. Great for a long fight. If there are in fact going to be long, protracted fights within Torghast, this might be a really good one. Second Chorus, the cooldown of a Boon of the Ascended is reduced by 30 seconds. That kind of sucks, because this has a 3-minute cooldown, so reducing it by a little bit is not so great. Torch of Humility, though, that seems incredibly powerful. Your next Boon of the Ascended lasts for 30 seconds, but keep in mind it's your next Boon of the Ascended. So for all I know, this might be a phantasm power that you just buy really quick. So cool, your next cooldown is going to be ultra powerful, because instead of 10 seconds, you'll have 30 seconds worth of casting this instant spell, getting a large number of stacks, and then exploding for a huge amount of damage. And then of course, there is the matter of whether or not this will synergize with other abilities. And keep in mind, that's only the priest ability for the Kyrian Covenant, and most of these are just for the Kyrian Covenant, unfortunately, because that is what is available for testing right now. So it's going to be a long conversation to kind of determine and figure out, hey, this Covenant might be great for Torghast, but there's going to be a lot of tuning involved. But anyway, let's move on to Warlocks. For the Kyrians, they get Scouring Tithe, where they deal some damage, they get some soul shards back, and then if the enemy happens to survive, then the cooldown is refreshed. So it's kind of spammy. Now let's look at the buffs. Ash and Anima. Scouring Tithe finishes its entire effect in 65% less time, so it's even more spammy than normal. That's pretty cool. Indebting Word, increase Scouring Tithe's periodic damage by 75%. Kind of the same as Ash and Anima, but I'm curious as to whether or not there's going to be some synergies that make one or the other even better. Languishing Soul Detrius says that it will increase the duration of Scouring Tithe by 200%. Again, kind of like basically the same difference as doing more damage, but it's just a matter of what it synergizes with. Being able to cast it instantly with the Shard of Slathgarar, fun name, that's pretty cool too. Tithing Dish says if an enemy dies while under the effects, they instantly grant 25 Phantasma to all players. So this is definitely a Torghast buff, and kind of cool. So it's something that will change the Warlock's gameplay style, where they'll want to. Well, I mean, one, it has kind of a short cooldown, at 40 seconds. So the strategy for them would be to cast this on preferably low health targets and then just kind of strategize and recast this. So that way the entire team is going to quickly gain large amounts of Phantasma, more currency for more buffs. Cool. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see classes that support each other, not just with damage, not just with healing or damage mitigation, but resource management within Torghast itself. I find that to be really cool and one great reason to consider running with a group rather than just going by yourself. I'm still going to go by myself though, because yeah. Anyway, Tome of Taking. Reduce the cooldown of Scouring Tide by a certain number of seconds. So again, kind of a throughput and pacing buff. Not bad. All right, moving on to mages, they're going to get Radiant Spark for the Kyrian. And again, another reminder, we're just looking at one covenant so far. This will cause, let's see, it conjures the Radiant Spark that does damage over 8 seconds. And then while they have that debuff, they're taking increased damage. That's right. I'm trying to remember all these like very quickly. First off, we have Anima Flecked Topaz. Reduce the cooldown of Radiant Spark by a certain number of seconds. I would love to know exactly how many seconds? 5 seconds, according to this. Okay, cool. That's not bad. It reduces it from 30 seconds to 25 seconds. I don't know if there are any other modifiers that can reduce this cooldown, or maybe haste will reduce the cooldown for all I know. Long Forbidden Words. Radiant Spark can be cast instantly, and it interrupts spell casting. Ooh, so that adds a lot of utility. I have a feeling that Radiant Spark, and it's something that I haven't tested yet, I have a feeling that it's on the global cooldown, but it'd be a great thing to open up with if you want to at least have those couple of seconds of, you know, knowing exactly how your enemy is going to behave before they do in fact start casting, and then interrupt them again. Scroll of the Arcane Mediator says says Radiant Spark's initial damage is increased by 100%. Which is not bad. I mean, considering that it does 75% of spell power right away, and then not too much more over 8 seconds. I mean, it's nice, but most of what you're going to be taking advantage of is the 10% increased damage from direct spells. So if you're an arcane mage, that's when you're going to save charges or save your stacks, so that way you can pop Radiant Spark and do some crazy damage later on. Uriel's Finality. After hitting an enemy with Radiant Spark, the damage of your 4th subsequent damage spell against that target is increased by an additional 600%. So again, this feels like another arcane kind of supporting spell, but I'm not a pro mage. Please correct me. This might be something where it's like, okay, Frostbolt, haha, and then my Glacial Spike is up. Here we go. Boom, you know, do a Radiant Spark, apply the debuff to the enemy, and then use a Glacial Spike, and it's going to do, good God, man, 6 times the damage. And if it crits, oh man, that could be like absolutely crazy. Winged Curio, extend the duration of Radiant Spark by 4 seconds. Nice, you know, that's not too crazy, especially considering that's the way the buff works. The effect ends after 4 spells, so that's cool. You know, it's not going to be like a huge thing for me. Maybe I'm reading this wrong. And then the Wizard's Prayer. 800% of the damage dealt by Radiant Spark is returned as healing to the Mage's party. To the Mage's party. Okay, so it's like a little vampiric embrace sort of thing. But it's only 800%. It's a large percentage of the damage that's dealt by Radiant Spark, not damage that you do to the enemy as the Radiant Spark buff is going off. So it's okay. Not like super great, but you know, it's okay. And then finally, I believe we have Demon Hunters. For the Kyrians, they're getting Elysian Decree. Place a sigil at a location, so we set something down, and then it blows up, shatters some soul fragments, whoop-de-doo. Flail of Merkur. Your Steward's File of Serenity refreshes the cooldown of Elysian Decree. File of Serenity is I believe a 5-minute cooldown. So this is a different kind of buff. So now this has, do we know? Okay, it has a 1-minute cooldown. This is weird. So it's like pop it once, pop your Steward, and then pop this again. Yeah, that's how I'm seeing this one, and that's okay. That's kind of okay. Let's move on though. Mask of the Winged Dominator. 20% of the damage dealt by Elysian Decree is returned to you as healing. Cool for tanks. Not a bad thing, or cool for soloing, I suppose too. Not great, but oh well. Sacrificial Soul Ash. The damage of your next Elysian Decree is increased by 10% for every second that you do not cast it while it's on cooldown, up to a maximum of 300% additional damage. So, math. All right, so the damage is increased by 10% every second, so 10% a second, that you do not cast it on cooldown, up to a maximum of 300% additional damage. So, if I cast it every 30 seconds, an additional 30 seconds. So if I increase the cooldown in my head by another 30 seconds, then it's going to do a lot more damage, right? So I like this one. This one's pretty cool. It makes it so that I can, and a minute and a half cooldown for a potentially high AoE burst is not bad. I think that's cool. All right, Scouring Rags of Torghast. Elysian Decree does not incur its cooldown if it hits a Maw Rat. Very much a synergy sort of deal. Great for probably clearing a whole bunch of Maw Rats. Now the thing is, you place it and then activates after, then it blows up after 2 seconds. This might be influenced by talent, so you can potentially maybe bring this down to 1 second. I haven't tested that, but if so, that's going to mean that once it detonates, because it has to detonate first, then the cooldown is refreshed. Maybe. It's kind of weird, because when you cast it, the cooldown is already, the cooldown begins. So if it hits a Maw Rat, is the cooldown reset? Or if it is it just like, if it even is applied to a Maw Rat, if it's applied on top of a Maw Rat while it's there, does it make it, is the cooldown even not activated? Which means that you can cast it like every global or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about that too much. Anyway, let's move on to Searing Deathbrand. Elysian Decree deals 40% more damage. Straightforward, not bad. Probably would want to. So I imagine that when it comes to picking up these buffs, you'll probably, maybe one floor you'll pick up the Flail. Okay, cool. And then on another floor, or maybe on the same floor, I might see Sacrificial Soul Ash. I'm like, cool. Maybe I'll pick this up. Maybe I'll not pick it up. Maybe I'll pick something else instead. But I'm sure that there's going to be instances where you will want to replace your powers if you have the opportunity. And then finally, Elysian Decree refunds two additional lesser soul fragments. So I guess it just gives me more so it's going to give me 5 fragments. Cool for longevity and spenders and all that stuff. So neat. Now keep in mind that the abilities and buffs that I read off, they may not necessarily be applied to Torghast. These might be Covenant buffs and whatnot, but I at least wanted to give kind of an idea of maybe what to expect from this. I'm not going to read the others because these might be like anything, we don't know. And because these other classes aren't going to be testable in Torghast yet, it's not really worth talking about or trying to react to too much. So that's going to be it about Torghast for now. It's just a matter of once it gets into our hands, we're going to dive in and test it out. I'm really excited about it right now. But what do you guys think? There are definitely still questions to ask, like how often are we going to be able to run Torghast? I think that's going to be that's pretty much the last thing, isn't it? Because now I feel much more reassured about the idea of it not being necessarily on a timer. It's just, you get kicked out after a while. Once you get to a point where you're doing poorly. Cool. Okay. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment below. I'm excited. I can't wait to test it. I'm like jazzed up. I'm just like, oh, they made it sound like it's testable now, but I don't know if it is. So, that's going to be it. You guys have a good one. Don't forget to like the video and to subscribe for more of this and Shadowlands coverage and all things Warcraft. I will see you in Torghast hopefully soon. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.